So if we can take that now before we go to closed session, if that's...
Okay.
Okay. We'll have item 12 before we go to closed session, because Mr. Weezer has a time issue.
What did you do with item 16, did you say? You said 15 you're going to hold.
16, we're going to, 16, we're going to receive and file as the,
They changed their mind.
yeah, they changed their mind. Okay. And so we'll move this one item out of order, item 12, if we can have that. And then we'll go in closed session on the first 7.
Okay, item number 12 is the El Pueblo Historical Monument Report relative to a plan to decrease operational hours to offset a $350,000 shortfall for 2007-2008. I don't see any representatives from the department today. But as we go through, as we've been going through the year, that the $350,000 would be rather unrealistic to ask the department to absorb this year. They are making a few cutbacks, I think, in some as-needed salaries. I think one thing that might be helpful, a couple of months ago, the committee and council actually approved the parking rate increase, and if we can get that going and get those rates in place, and I think this would go a long ways to help offset some of this shortfall.
No, let me just ask, which rates,
These are the parking.
okay, the parking rate. I
Parking
thought
rate.
we've been dealing with that for a while. Is that now?
As I understand it, the rates have not gone to the commission yet.
Okay. Now, is that something we'd have to do by ordinance, or is that something the commission would approve?
The commission needs to
So they
take up the
approve
item and adopt, yes.
Does it still have to come here for us to create an ordinance?
No.
Okay.
No.
Is there anyone here from the department? No?
Yeah, I don't think I see anybody.
Yeah. Well, I'm a bit concerned about what I see before me. This is about a 46% cut to the remaining funds, and what this will essentially do is cut down maintenance on the Alvaro Street, an area that is visited by many people, an area that for some is the first place they see when they get to the city of Los Angeles. Same thing, it'll cut down custodial services on the Central Plaza. The museums, galleries, the visitor center, and the greeter station will potentially be closed, which is of concern. And there are some other items in here that add up to the $350,000. But I really wanted to hear from the department what this means, because as I read this, it seems pretty drastic.
I think I would agree, and I think from our perspective is we wouldn't want to implement these. I think at this point of the year, it's unrealistic. We don't want to have layoffs at this point. I think this is provided as an informational piece for you to respond. Just to let you know if the department had to make up that shortfall, this is what it would mean. This would be the impact. So I think from our perspective, we'd like to get the parking stuff rate implemented so we can start generating some more revenue that would help offset some of the $350.
Okay, and also I think there's some potential revenue in the leases that have been there for quite some time that seems to have no movement, and I think for longer-term purposes, that's also revenue generating that we could remove those items at some point. And I would love to have gotten a report from the department on this, but so this is just informational.
I think this was in response to the committee's request on how the department would be able to absorb the $350. As I see, you just want to receive and file.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I comment on this? I don't want to receive and file. I mean, I just think they need to come before us and discuss this. And frankly, I think it's unbelievable that they're not even physically here. I've been engaged with them about their contracts, which most of them have not been renewed, renegotiated. All I get is mumbling out of these folks. And that's unacceptable, as Mr. Weezer pointed out. And I have several questions here that I would like to ask staff. So I don't want you to, in my opinion, Mr. Chair, you can do what you want, but I'd like to continue it until they come back and talk about it before we receive and file.
If it's okay with the chair, we can then continue for 1 week. And
What is our start date for the budget itself?
The 28th.
Another meeting scheduled before that?
I think there's 2 or 1.
There
One more.
One more, okay, so,
Actually, you have two councilmen available. You have a meeting scheduled for the 14th, which is next Monday. You also have the opportunity for a meeting on the 21st. However, that is the date that the budget will be released, so that's a decision from the chair. But you definitely have a meeting next week on the 14th.
could we have this come back next week, the 14th? And have the staff, the department staff here? Okay,
Okay.
so we'll hold item 12.
Okay, we'll continue until next week, for 1 week.
Okay, and then we have a request for the police department, Mr. T. Frank, on number 11. We'll handle that before we go to closed session.
Good
Hey,
afternoon.
before you open your mouth, the Terry Hara swearing in was so historic this morning and so beautiful to show the diversity of the police department and our commitment to everybody in it. It was great being with you at it.
It was a great event, thank you. Richard T. Fank, Executive Director of the Police Commission. I'm here on item 11, which is an ordinance that has been prepared by the City Attorney's Office, which will have a slight modification as to the permitting of parking lot operators. Currently, the Police Commission issues the permit for a parking lot operation to occur. The Commission is not involved in the collection of any of the fees that are related to that operation. The administrative process currently, if an individual is not paying their parking occupancy tax to the City of Los Angeles, Finance Department has an administrative process that they must go through while that operator can continue to operate with having taxes in the arrears not paid to the city. And we can take no action at the Police Commission to suspend or revoke that permit until that administrative process is concluded by the Department of Finance. What this ordinance will do is allow us, once an individual is not paying their taxes, it is in arrears, and we are notified by the Office of Finance, we then can proceed to the Police Permit Review Panel for a revocation or suspension of that operator's permit, which is certainly an incentive for them to get in compliance.
And what type of permit are we dealing with, just the parking?
Yes, sir, the parking lot operator. There are about 1,200 lots in the city that are permitted by the Police Commission. What we do, as informed by the Office of Finance, if they believe they have an operator who is operating out of the compliance of the requirements of the Police Commission permit, and that operator is not paying their taxes to the city in a timely manner, we then go out and look at the enforcement side of what we regulate, which is not the collection of the fees. We only operate the posting of the fee, that is the responsibility of the person using the lot, all the other requirements of the Police Commission permit. We have found in the past when our officers go out with individuals either from the revenue collection side of Office of Finance or the parking network, I believe is the private contractor, we've been able to, by utilizing our enforcement mechanism, to assist in the collection of those fees. About 2 years ago, we assisted with collecting about $600,000 in fees by going out and being the enforcement arm from non-compliance of the police permit. So this will streamline that procedure. It's one of a number of things that we're looking at in the permitting side to become more efficient in, one, the permitting of the lots, but also the oversight of the lots.
Okay. Let me ask Ray, is this an accurate figure that we collect about $88 million on parking fees?
This is on the parking tax, yes.
Okay.
That's what the
Then
budget
what
is.
would we expect this change to amount to as far as the additional funds?
I cannot, I'm sorry, sir.
I'm sorry, Ed Cabrera, Chief 2, Tax and Permit Division for Finance. That 80 million figure is correct for fiscal year 2006-2007. We collected approximately 78 million on parking occupancy tax. What we're looking at here is not generating new revenue, but collecting on the audit billings and other assessments that we've already levied. We have approximately 23 million in parking occupancy tax assessments and billings that are in our collection stage or through bankruptcy proceedings or litigation proceedings. And as the Commission President does indicate, we are looking at this as an additional enforcement tool to get compliance not only through the audit process but also through the police permitting process to collect on this POT assessment revenue.
Okay, let me just, so I'm clear in my head, is the money that you're after is part of the 88 million that we expect that we're not collecting?
It's in addition to.
In addition to?
Correct.
Okay. And what do we think that amount will be? If we're approaching 88 or over 80 million for this fiscal year, do we believe that, I think you used the figure 20 million, there's an additional 20 million of unpaid?
Correct.
All right. So we should be hovering at 100 million instead of the 88?
That's correct.
All All right. And then let me ask for the CAO, do we have any idea on, in this ordinance, what's the timeline for implementation of when this can be in place?
I think if we can get this going, then I think we can try to get it in place as soon as we get final buy-off on the ordinance. I think there's a few technical things that might need to be worked out between the city attorney and finance, but once we get those resolved, I think we can get this in place as soon as we get the ordinance
So if we
forward to
approve this
council.
ordinance, do we have a placeholder in council?
I think we can request a placeholder.
So we can get that in the council this week, and then I guess we go through the, 60 days after approval?
The notification and so forth, yes.
No.
Jose?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. First of all, parking lot operators. How many different parking lot operators do we have, and how many parking lots are they managing?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, we have approximately, through our contractor, we have approximately 1,784 parking lot locations in the city of Los Angeles.
1,700?
Yes.
84?
Correct, approximately.
And how many cars can go into all of those lots?
I don't have that specific number. Obviously, there are different sizes of locations and so forth, but I don't have that information at hand right now.
You'll get that back to us before we vote on it in council?
Yes.
Okay. Second question is, what authority does the city have with these private parking lots to install something, frankly, that is the new day, which is automated ticketing and payment equipment and access gates? Where are we with that?
Actually, we did bring that up as a budget item. Currently, that we do not have anything in place in terms of installing automated equipment that would ensure compliance, but we did bring that up. The Office of Finance, we have brought that up as a suggestion in terms of dealing with those operators that are consistently not complying with the ordinance. I believe that would take city attorney review and analysis to determine what authority the city can have in applying that measure to those non-compliance
Will you
BOT
get the
operators.
report back in time before the council so I can ask that question and get an answer?
Yes. We will speak with city attorney on
The
that.
third one is, I want to move, and of course, I need my colleagues and the mayor and everybody else to go with it. I want to go to $1 an hour minimum for any parking anywhere within this great city. And I'd like to know how the 17,084 independent lots would deal with that issue.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to just throw that out. How would we move forward? And because once we get it going, I don't want to wait another 10 years for us to implement this kind of stuff. I want to do it like yesterday.
Okay.
And the last part on that, we have been installing DOT, those incredible new technology meters where you can use your credit card or you can use your cell phone and you can operate, without anybody involved other than you and your technology. Have we looked at exploring that particular technology with these independent lots too?
No, we haven't, not yet.
Okay, can we do that as well?
Yes. Now, I would just point out that when we're talking about the private parking lots, we're not talking about the metered parking lots. We're talking about the lots where there is a set rate, which actually does have to be filed with the police commission. So we're not talking about the metered parking per se.
What's the set rate? How do we do?
Well, each lot basically can establish their own rate, but they do have to list that information on a periodic basis with the police commission. So we're not, just for a point of clarification, we're not speaking specifically to metered parking.
Okay, I understand.
We're
But
talking
the-
about it's the 10% when you see those signs
Right.
and you go into a
Correct.
private
Right.
parking lot
Right.
and they say, here's the cost and then a 10% city tax.
Exactly.
That's the amount.
Yeah,
that-
the way that works, Councilmember, is that the individual lot operator can establish their pricing. They must notify the police commission. We maintain a list of that. And they can have staggered pricing during a day or special event pricing. They just have to notify us. So, playoff game at Staples, parking normally might be 25, they could raise it to 50 to 75. If they notice it and do it properly, and then that price would include the 10% tax. So there are a number of lots throughout the city that have variable pricing. After 4 p.m., price comes down all day. Prior to 4 p.m., it could be one number. You'll see those throughout the city. But we have that list, but they are able to charge whatever they want to charge, basically whatever the market will bear for them, as long as they notice us.
It's very interesting. I need to know more about this whole concept.
Sure, we'll be happy to sit down with you and go over the whole process with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So I'm clear on this. We get 10% of whatever they charge, and so raising the cost of parking could be more revenue for the city, but we also would continue to get the gross tax receipts on their business. So that would go up depending on whatever their gross would go up.
Yes, definitely. They do have the obligation to pay under the Section 21.56, the parking business tax gross receipts.
All right, very good.
Don't forget, I want that report, because I really want to know what 17,084 lots do, how many cars they get in, what their overall revenue stream is. And I'd also like a little final element, and that is, are these totally private lots, or are they city lots leased to private firms?
No, these are private parking lots.
Totally private.
Yeah.
Yes.
Too bad. I'd love to have them as city lots. Take them back. Okay.
We will get you the information from our office as to the number of permitted lots and the number of spaces on each of those permitted lots. We have that information.
If you could just hold tight there.
Yes.
We have two public comment cards. They may ask something or comment that you may need to
Absolutely.
respond. Sam Siegel from President Garcetti's office, and also Mr. McQuiston.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Sam Siegel. I work for Council President Garcetti, the maker of Motion 08-0201. I'm here to speak in support of the ordinance before you that would require the parking lot owners to comply with the city's parking occupancy and business tax laws prior to the granting of a new permit, and the authorization for the suspension or revocation of a permit for non-payment of those taxes. During these tough budget times, raising revenues is of the utmost importance, and this ordinance may allow the city to realize significant revenues during the 08-09 fiscal year and into the future. By enforcing the tax laws we have on the books, this ordinance will bring dollars into the city and help us to protect our core services. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank him for doing it.
Mr. McQuiston?
Jim McQuiston. I have one technical change I think you should make. It says in that if it's not exactly according to the state code or the municipal code, Section 1, you cannot give them a permit. The problem is we have variances and we have CUPs, and it does not say in there that a variance or a CUP permits that. I think that's a technical change to the wording, but I think it is an important technical change because a lot of the parking lots are on either variances or CUPs, and we don't want to say, no, they can't have a parking lot, period.
You're saying that the fact that they're on a CUP because they're a parking facility, you think that this ordinance would eliminate them from?
If you read the ordinance directly, and my legal training says you have to read the plain language, you can't say what you intended by the plain language. The plain language says I don't have it with me right now, I think it's number 3 in there. It says it has to comply with either the state law or the local law, and it references a particular section. The problem is that it doesn't say that you can have a variance here, and so you have to say as authorized or give some other leeway so that if we do have variances or CUPs, that the parking lot can exist. And that's the only change that I would make to that. Otherwise, it sounds reasonable to me.
Okay.
The only amendment addressed in this is as it relates to the suspension or revocation of the permit to operate. None of the other ordinance part was addressed by the city attorney's office. It was only to clean up the issue of the individual having this long administrative process while they still owed the city revenue and being able to continue to operate. Under the change in Section 2, the failure to pay that business tax or parking occupancy tax will be grounds for the suspension of the permit, but the procedure outlined in 22.02 shall be followed, which is the administrative process. So we did not address that issue as relates to what Mr. O'Quist
All you're
was saying.
saying in this ordinance is that if you owe, if you're owing money, you can't continue to operate.
That's correct, sir, because currently, if I owe the city $1 million, until I complete my administrative process that the Department of Finance has outlined, I can continue to operate. What this says, once they notice us that that individual or entity is in arrears to the city paying their parking occupancy tax, it gives us immediate cause to go to the police permit review panel to take their permit to operate away. That's the incentive for them to pay.
Okay. And the issue is that you're looking at it that they pay up front, and their appeal, if granted, they get a refund.
That's correct.
Yeah. I should amend my statement. It's actually item 5. It says, "The business," so forth, "is prohibited by any local or state law, statute, rule, or regulation as prohibited in the particular location by the provisions of Chapter 1 of this code," which eliminates, in plain language, any variant. And you don't want to say that. You really want to have them go through the CUP if they want a
me
parking
ask,
lot. Once they get it, then they should be allowed to continue.
Okay. Let me ask the police department and the city attorney to get together on that and
Sure.
and address Mr. McQuiston's issue before it comes to council.
Absolutely.
And if that requires some amended language, if not, then we can address it once it gets to council.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Very good,
Thank
sir.
you. So we'll move that item with those requests for legal counsel to look at those verbal issues before it comes to council.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to go in closed session now for items 1 through 7.
Okay, so you have time, because Robert...
And just one item, we'll continue item 7 for 1 week.
Okay, perfect. That takes us to item number 8, which is a motion, Smith, Wesson, Cardenas, relative to a reappropriation of funds for the purpose of conducting historic resources surveys of the Jefferson Park and Balboa Highlands Historic Preservation Overlay Zones. The motion calls for disencumbering $197,000 from 2003-2004 and reappropriating this funding back in the current year to planning to do the 2 surveys.
Let me just ask a couple of questions. I didn't quite understand in looking at the notes that why one existing company we're moving work from and selecting another. Is there some issue of quality of work or some issue why we're moving it if the other company is viable and does the same work?
Yes, Ken Bernstein with the Office of Historic Resources in the Department of City Planning. The funds had originally been encumbered associated with one contractor that is under contract with the city, Jones and Stokes. When we were ready to proceed with the work during this fiscal year, we issued a bid letter to the 3 existing contractors that have contracts with the city to do HPOZ survey work. And at that time, we received a response from Architectural Resources Group, but not from Jones and Stokes, who had initially been interested in doing this work. However, we did not receive a response at our most recent issuance of a bid letter, and we believe that Architectural Resources Group is qualified, and we have a competitive bid from them, and would like to proceed.
Let me
with that
just
work.
ask, on Jones and Stokes, are they an LA-based company?
They are, and we are working with them on a number of other existing contracts, including the preparation of a citywide historic context statement for our citywide survey, Survey LA, which is a very large project they are currently undertaking for our department.
The other thing I was wondering, if they are doing consulting work, and I've seen us do it in the past, if we want that, being that they're already, and it's a similar contract, that we just expand their contract to add one more project, why did we go out for a letter or whatever that?
We are, I believe, required to under the terms of, we have existing contracts with 3 firms to conduct historic resources surveys for the department. So whenever we have new projects that come forward, we issue a request for bids from all 3 firms that are under contract with the city.
Yeah. My concern, and I don't know one from the other as far as what their work quality is. I'm assuming they both are good firms.
Yes.
But the one thing that strikes me is that we have a firm that's basically housed in L.A., and I would assume possibly pays business tax in L.A., and we take business, or we move it from there, and we give it to a company that's, I believe, in Pasadena and outside of the county. And yet, neither one of them pay business taxes, in my assumption.
That may be the case with Architectural Resources Group. We are in the process right now. We would like to expand our on-call pool of consultants, and we are about to issue a request for qualifications, an RFQ, to open up that list more widely. We'd like to have a larger pool of firms, including a larger number of LA-based firms. In this case, as I said, we did not receive a response back from the Los Angeles-based firm when the bid letter was reissued for this particular
And you're saying we
project.
didn't have the ability to just expand their existing contract to have them include this work? We had to go out independently?
I believe that's the case under the terms of our
If you
contract.
could just verify that before it comes to council? Okay, we'll move that if you could just find that out.
Okay.
Because again, it just concerns me that we're investing in a company that if all the things I read are not located in Los Angeles, and yet we're maybe taking business away from one that is. And I speculate that they may be hiring LA residents in an LA business. So we can find that out.
Certainly, thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move that and request that information by the time it comes to council. Let me see, we have a letter, a public comment. Is that Adrian Biondo?
Good afternoon, council members. Adrian Biondo, Chairman of the Los Angeles Conservancy's Modern Committee. I'm also a resident of the Balboa Highlands proposed HPOZ. On behalf of the homeowners of Balboa Highlands, Joseph Eichler's only tract of Eichler Homes in Los Angeles County, we want to thank you for your continued efforts to protect this important mid-century modern community. Our Eichler homeowners continue to be committed to investing and restoring their homes, but without design guidelines, the future of Balboa Highlands is at serious risk. We enthusiastically support the motion to reappropriate funds so that our historic resource survey can be completed and Balboa Highlands can soon flourish under the protection of an HPOZ. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll move that item 8 with the requested additional information.
Okay. Item number 9 is a Los Angeles Police Department report relative to their monthly report on sworn overtime use at the Los Angeles International Airport for the period of July 21st, 2007 through December 8th, 2007. Public Safety Committee will consider the matter next week. Oh, it was today?
It was continued.
Oh,
I mean, it
continued.
was consented this morning.
Okay, good.
15 was continued.
Let me just, I put this on mainly just to ask the question that we asked during the mid-year, and I think there's about 3 or 4 different motions. Do you have a current status of where we are on the 22 officers that were assigned and that have been under great discussion about their deployment?
I don't remember what we ultimately agreed on.
Yeah, there's been about 4 motions on it.
I apologize, I came over on the fiscal matter, and I'm not prepared to discuss that. It's an operational issue.
Okay, if we, because the thing is, the report that you have is self-explanatory, but if we get asked, by the time this goes to council, if we can get that report back, because I believe there's at least 4 motions, and I think Mr. Smith did one on the fourth quarter, or the 4th report, and then Mr. Rosenthal has one, and Ms. Gruhl and I put one together on the mid-year, and we're still trying to figure out what is the current status of the 22 officers that are not being paid for by LAWA and whether they are being redeployed. And I think Mr. Smith gave a recommendation to use those 22 as part of the overtime cadre so that there's would not be losing additional officers, not lose them, but hyping up their overtime rates when they go back, so we reduce it in that fashion. So if you can give us an update on that when this comes before, we'd appreciate it.
I could just ask a follow-up thing, just for my own information. Why do we assign overtime? I mean, because all of a sudden that's time and a half, or what do we pay for overtime?
It's time and a half for each of the officers. This was set up as a special detail. The city is fully reimbursed for this.
But why did we do an overtime rather than just regular officers, let them work regular hours, and pay them out of LAWA money?
It would deplete the sworn force, because you'd have to put people out there, on a regular basis away from their regular duties, from whatever division they work in. And also, it actually will cost more for the LAWA to pay for regular duty than it does on overtime, because whenever we charge them for regular duty, we have to apply the cap rate, which is higher than the overhead rate, or the overtime amount.
I'm still confused.
Okay.
I'm just saying, LAWA and LAPD have agreed on X number of officers that are essential to the mission, correct?
This is just the people that are sitting at the screening stations that are required by TSA.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
So let's say TSA.
Pardon me?
These are only the TSA ones.
Yes.
And how many are they?
Gosh, I know that the number is reduced, but I
But it is 99,199.8 hours in those?
This goes back quite a ways, back to 2003. We've been asked to report quarterly since 2003, so it's a running total of how much it's cost us since that time. It's now costing us about $800,000 to $900,000 a month.
Well, see, this confusion for me is this. If TSA says you need X officers to man X stations,
right,
whatever that story is, why don't we just build that into our staffing patterns rather than lucrative overtime stuff rather than a staffing
right.
pattern commitment?
Well, two issues. One, it would deplete people from
They
the,
just hire new people. I mean, you get over that. You don't, it isn't like depleting people from anywhere. If we say TSA requires, let's just throw out a figure, 25 people, just as a number. And TSA says you must have those 25 people. LAWA obviously agrees you must have those 25 people. And of course, LAPD says we're here to serve and protect. So then everybody agrees with 25 people. So create 25 people jobs. Train them properly. And as part of a officer's normal career, some get the option to rotate in to these positions.
okay? That would deplete 25 people from the field who are
Correct.
working. Right now, we have people working on overtime
Right on.
basis, so you don't deplete anybody
I
from the field.
understand that.
Okay.
But let's create those staffing patterns
Okay.
so we don't put overtime people in those
Okay.
slots.
And from LAWA's point of view, it would be more expensive for us to put people there on a full-time basis than they're on an overtime basis. On overtime, there's no overhead rate applied to that dollar amount, so it's just the time and a half for that officer. If we put somebody down there on regular duty, we're charging them well over 100% of that person's cap rate, and it would end up costing LAWA more
I
money.
don't care.
Oh,
It's a TSA commitment.
Right.
It's part of the security of the airport. LAWA has the funds to do that.
right. Those are the considerations. I think they're
But I
operational.
think LAWA has told us that there may be a year and a half away from increasing their deployment where they
Right.
can relieve all LAPD people from the podium assignments. So
Right.
they would put their own people there.
Right.
So, but
That's
one,
better.
yeah,
But I-
let me just ask Ray, if we could, when we get this in council, in addition to the LAPD asking for the status, we asked the status of the 22, if we can also get someone from LAWA to tell us where they are on their hiring pattern, because I think they told us maybe 2 years ago it was a 2-year plan, or maybe
Yeah, I think
year-
last year when we were in committee, they were talking about a year, year and a
year,
half.
another
so-
year. So
we
that
should
would give us
be
an
good to get a
idea.
status.
What we thought also, which we don't see it happening, is that they would start incrementally releasing some of those podium positions as they grew, but
That-
we're still running with the 45.
That's happened.
It has?
Yeah, there are fewer people now assigned to the overtime detail, so that is beginning to
Okay,
happen.
well, that's what we'd like
In
to see.
particular, the motors.
Yeah. I mean, I like all that, and this is great what Bernard just said. But the third point is a little bit more real in the sense of what a cop's role is. If they're on overtime, I don't particularly want cops on overtime unless they have to do a given crisis. And at the airport, I don't want a cop who just worked the beat to come in and to do that as an additional responsibility. I prefer that from a safety standpoint, not to be overtime. But the other two reasons are really great.
Why don't you just sit there, because we have someone who wants, Mr. Quiston wants to talk on number 9, in case he asks something that you have the answer for.
Okay.
Number 9.
Our honorary council member and member of the Budget Committee.
Jim McQuiston. It's been my training, anyway, that there's a federal law that says that the airport may not, that means it can't, compensate the LAPD on regular time, but they can compensate them on overtime. And I really believe that the solution that the CAO worked out on this, I guess, with LAWA, that they would put the police on overtime if they were on the base, was very, very smart. And if we had the police on regular time, we would have to fund those ourselves. And since it's a federal requirement to fund the police there, we would have to do it. We have no choice but to put those people there. And this way around, at least, we do get compensation for working at the airport, whereas otherwise we can't get it.
I appreciate that, Jim, but I think Mr. Parks' final solution of a staffing pattern that somebody has that covers it, obviously, LAWA would be.
Yes, if LAWA runs it up. But if the federal government says, I don't care if LAWA has 50,000 officers, you still have to have those police there, we can't fight the feds. We have to go with them.
But I think we have to realize that LAWA Police Department are police officers.
Yes,
And so-
absolutely. I have no problem with that.
Certified, too.
But if the feds say, besides the LAWA police, you have to have the LAPD there, then we're in
Here, I
catch-22.
always love the federal government.
And I think the CAO has worked out an answer to that. I think it needs a little bit more research on that before we put put our eggs in that basket.
Let me just ask one other question. How are we comparing from this year to last year on the use overtime? About the same,
No, it's gone down a little bit,
going down?
yeah,
Thank you.
for those hours. I'm seeing in the last 2 or 3 pay period, well, the last pay period, it went down considerably, and there's been a lot of discussion. So I think that we're starting to see
Trying to see,
fewer people.
yeah, okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, that takes us to item number 10. Item 10A and 10B are reports from the City Treasurer's Office. This is her investment and cash management report for the month ending November 30th, 2007, and also December 31st, 2007.
Good afternoon, Joya DeFore, City Treasurer. With me, Senior Investment Officer Thomas Juarez. And I will be happy to address any of the reports you have in front of you, but I thought it was important to bring you an update on what's going on in the current economic environment. You may have heard a lot about Bear Stearns, and those of you may have recalled that several months ago we had started underweighting our positions in all the financial industries. At the time Bear Stearns had their crisis, we owned $0 and 0 positions in Bear Stearns. We had, at that time, a slight position in Lehman Brothers, which was another name that we heard in the news that might experience that same possible liquidity crisis. Those positions have now been liquidated. It has been, for the last few months, our practice to underweight those financial securities. We saw, I guess, beginning last summer, that this was a disaster waiting to happen. Now, we could not have predicted how bad it was, but we took a defensive position. And as this committee and City Council approved our acquisition of our new investment analysis software, it helped us further analyze our holdings. So thank you very much, and that worked out for the good of the city. I think at the time we also told you that with the software we would be able, we thought conservatively, to generate an additional $10 million across the whole portfolio. And again, this isn't just the general pool portion, which is about 16%, but the entire portfolio. And today we're at about 20 million?
Closer to 30 million.
Do
Yeah.
you have any of it with you?
Excuse me?
Do you have any of it with you?
Oh, no, but just again, just to reiterate, because of the confidence that this committee has placed in letting us have the tools that we need to do our job, we've been able to fully utilize the investment staff, all of which come from the outside, come from Wall Street. No one's seen it this bad before, but at least we didn't have to go through a training process to train the investment officers to do the basics. Further update is that it is just the practice of the city to do a revenue estimate some 18 months before the year, and that is challenging, to say the least. Again, the good news to report is that this year we will slightly exceed the revenue estimate that we gave to the city in April of 2007. Reasons, a couple of reasons. One, as the feds lowered the interest rate, it increases the value of our holdings in the portfolio. And so every time we sell and rebalance the portfolio, we're realizing gains beyond those that we might have anticipated under a stable economic environment. And with that, I'll turn it over to Thomas for a little more of the technical explanation.
Okay, thank you. As the treasurer mentioned, we have had excess gains, and it can be attributed to primarily the underweighting of finance paper in the portfolios in general. For the month of November, we had approximately a balance of $5.2 billion in the treasurer's pool. We had excess return of approximately 3 basis points, which equated to roughly $3,055,000 in the pool. For December, the
treasurer's pool was valued at approximately $5.6 billion, with excess returns of the benchmark of 18 basis points, or in dollar-wise, $5.7 million. And what I did was I put together just a brief overview of what's happened in the economy, and if I may, I'd just like to read it. Cash flow to the household sector has been shrinking since late 2007, contributing to a decline in consumer confidence and pressure on spending. Although fiscal stimulus will provide a welcome reprieve over the next few months, most economists believe renewed shrinkage beginning late this year, owing mainly to labor market deterioration and continued contraction in mortgage equity withdrawal. The outlook for household cash flow helps to support the view that the real consumer spending will rebound sharply beginning around mid-year before decelerating again in the fourth quarter and early 2009. Consumer sentiment is likely to improve modestly in coming months, but this sets up the risk of a double dip in spending once the effects of the fiscal stimulus fade out. Economic data is looking increasingly consistent with recession, though not with a deep slump. The household sector retrenchment is particularly visible in the auto sector, where sales are plummeting and loan delinquencies have surged. Lastly, the evidence of a full-blown labor market downturn is growing stronger as payroll employment fell substantially for the third straight month, and unemployment rates surged by 0.3 of a percentage point. Further labor market deterioration looks likely in coming months, judging from the sharp jump in both initial and continuing jobless claims in late March. And what I want to add is Friday we received further economic data that supported this jobs figure, that we had a negative growth of 80,000 jobs for the country for March, and unemployment rate actually went up to 5.1%.
You're saying 80,000 loss on the jobs and 5% unemployment?
5.1%, and that was for March.
When do you think we hit the bottom on this?
Good question.
Say 09, I heard you said 09, but is that when you think we...
Right. You know, the numbers are very troubling. I mean, what's evident in the economy. However, it's not what's categorized yet as a full-blown recession, where we've had zero to negative growth.
Over 2 quarters.
Over 2 quarters. The last quarter we had was, I believe, a growth rate of around 0.6%, which is very weak. You know, the stimulus package should help. I mean, it's varying numbers, you know, that we've heard. And that's what I alluded to in the write-up here, that we should see some growth or some spike up in spending, you know, around the third quarter of this year, but that would probably decline by the end of the year and going into the first quarter of 2009, is what economists believe. But with the rate cuts and the stimulus package combined, we should start seeing some growth again by mid-next year, is what the thought.
Somebody says we should buy gold. Do you guys invest in gold?
No, strictly fixed income, securities bonds.
And we're actually prohibited from doing so by the state code.
Right.
I would love to.
And oil.
And oil.
Let me just ask you, your forecast, you've gone over it about 3 million for this year. Is that about?
From the revenue book, yes. Okay. But from our revised estimate, the end of April last year, about 1.5 million.
1.5. Now, are you in the process of beginning to forecast for next fiscal year? Is that process started?
And completed. So
what do you forecast for 2008?
About 26 million for general.
26 million increase?
No, the decrease. Decrease by about 13 million.
So instead of the 38, we're talking 26.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is a function, again, of the decline in the interest rates. It's also a function of a flight to quality. A lot of people are getting nervous. Mm-hmm. And so as you have people investing in the fixed incomes, the kind of safe investments we do, it's going to drive down the interest rates there as well. And the forward curve says that the Feds may reduce one more time?
Once, actually I looked at it this morning, once more in, I have it here. It's in April, and then in June possibly there's like a 70% chance of another 0.25 basis point or 0.25% decrease. After that, it gets a little sketchy, and that, again, is only, 3 months out.
And we did take that into account as we did our estimate. So as we've explained, I think every month that we're here, we have no control over the economy, but what we try to do is position ourselves defensively so we're not harmed.
So why again can't you do oil and gold?
It's prohibited from the California State Government Code. There's a specific listing of what we can invest in.
How do we compare to other large metropolitan areas such as New York, Chicago, San Francisco?
As terms of actual return, as I mentioned, or?
Yes.
I don't know. I have not seen any return attribution from other cities. It's my understanding, though, quite a few municipalities have become very nervous with the markets and have strictly positioned themselves with treasuries, which, if you're, against a benchmark as we are, can really hurt you. As the treasurer mentioned, where we can attribute a lot of our excess return are the prudent investment style that we've had by having a tool such as Bond Edge, which we acquired last year, and it allows us to weigh the probability of, say, a default on a corporate name. So it allows us to maintain the benchmark holdings or close to it, but by balancing with names that we feel that are appropriate for the portfolios.
So we don't compare ourselves to other municipalities?
Well,
how we perform?
It's sort of hard. The trap you sometimes may fall into, they have different cash flow needs. In other states, they have different allowable investments.
Oh, yeah.
That's why we take this benchmark that anybody can compare themselves to. And the benchmark is made up of like investors using the same style and the same duration that we have. And that's why, against that sort of universal benchmark, we're outperforming the benchmark.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. As we look forward to this next year, and maybe look forward is not the best way, but as you look at our next year, there are certain things that, investment policies that we could look at where if they didn't buy something for 6 months or 5 months, one of our departments, we had conversations between your office and some of our city departments in the CAO to say, how you plan on spending your money. We could invest it. If you don't spend to purchase this until X date, we could get some short-term gain from that. Has there ever been that exercise?
Not exactly that exercise. What we have done is improved our communication with the departments, especially the ones with the larger cash flows that could impact us, like the airports, like DWP. I know investment staff actually sits down and meets with them, and we do have a mechanism in place where if a withdrawal or an investment is above a certain amount, we're notified. But I think to even the more broad picture, we are looking at the investment policy, and we're in the process of revising that to give us a little bit more flexibility, including, as the state code allows, increasing the duration of the portfolio. If it's not stated by policy, the code says you can invest for a maximum of 5 years. We are in the process of proposing 7 years, just to pick up some incremental return.
Let me ask you, it shows in your report that you've lost about 10% of your employees primarily to getting promoted elsewhere. Have they all been replaced?
All but one, I believe.
Okay. Now, a while back, you talked about getting treasurer-specific positions. Have that worked itself out, or are you still in the process, or where are you with personnel department?
It hasn't worked itself out yet. I think everyone has other challenges at this point. It will get to a point where that's going to become critical, and I would like the opportunity to report back and see with our personnel officer exactly where we are in that process.
Yeah, we'd like a report back because there's been a couple of years we've talked about treasurer-specific positions that could reward people, but it would slow down their transferability and to other like positions within the city. So if we can get a report back on that, I'd appreciate it. And then where are we on our minority bank program as far as deposits?
I think we're up to $6 million. I will give you the additional names for that. I think we added 2 since last we were here.
Okay, and then any other technology that you're looking at? The one that you mentioned earlier, was it Bond Edge?
Yes.
It's really been worth its weight in gold, but
Yes.
Yes.
anything else on the horizon that could give us other kinds of advantages?
At this point, no. I think we're okay.
All right.
But we are doing something on the cash management side, as we reported before we allowed the contract with a major vendor to terminate just for lack of performance. And internally, our system staff developed the same, a better software that would allow us to accelerate the recording of the receipt of cash. We're in the process of working with city attorney to get that license copyrighted and the possibility sell it to other jurisdictions.
Now, you're not involved at all on this recent issue of insurance versus non-insurance on bonds?
No,
I mean, although the company, we may have, some people invested in that company, but you don't have a primary role in dealing with the whole issue of insurance on when we go out to sell debt.
No, not within the city. As a former executive board member of GFOA, we did take a position on that issue.
Okay. Anything else? We'll move the items N, A, and B. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your fine work, sir. Appreciate it.
Okay, I think we already took up item 11. Would you like to take up item 12 again? I know we continued it, but the general manager is here. Would you like to reconsider that item?
Jose's got all of his answers, so you want to?
I mean, I'd like to
Yeah.
take that item up.
All right, why don't we bring 12 up and do that then?
My apologies for eating, but all of a sudden I realized I was going to speak and I have to.
I'd rather you eat. I've forgotten all I know about mouth to mouth. Hi there.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Robert Andrade, General Manager. I'm joined by Diana Martinez-Lilly, Assistant General Manager on my left, and Quentin Gonzalez on my right. Report before you identifies the $350,000 in possible reductions. This report summarizes operational impact statements corresponding with identified reductions. And since our release of our report on March 19th, we've had to update some of those figures for you. We could share those figures with you this afternoon. In essence, we have fewer funds available to meet the reductions in accounts for maintenance, custodial, and part-time employees, and have to make up that difference. It's about $13,400 in our salaries general account. Essentially, the breakdown is $18,200 in maintenance, custodial would be $25,400, part-time employee reductions would be $30,000. We do have salary savings currently at $68,000, and the balance would have to be made up with long-term reductions in full-time employment of $208,400. That gets us to the $350,000. Essentially, the $350,000 amount represents 54% of El Pueblo's remaining budget for this fiscal year. In order to get to that $350,000 reduction, we would need to terminate 15 of our 20 current full-time permanent employees, and we would need to do that before the next pay period. Otherwise, that would go up to 18. And actually, as was affectionately termed by our office, the doomsday is May 10th. By May 10th, we would have to let all employees go. It should be important to note that El Pueblo has already taken steps to reduce our 07-08 expenditures. Our last FSR projected $60,000 in savings, and we believe that we'll nearly double that by the end of the fiscal year. We've continued to manage hiring vacancies. We've held back 4 positions, and sad to note, but we should report that we've had to let go 17 intermittent staff already from city services. That termination of 17 employees has effectively reduced our museum operations from an average of 49 hours a week at 7 sites, 7 days a week, to 22 hours a week, operating now 5 days a week. During full operations, a daily average visitorship at our Avila Adobe, which is our more popular museum, is 645. So based on our adjusted hours, we're turning away 1,290 visitors a week just in the Avila Adobe. And if you factor that in for an entire year, we're looking at approximately 67,000 visitors that we will be turning away from just one museum. We're here to respond to any other questions that you may have. We've prepared impact statements on each of the service areas, including custodial, part-time, employees, and maintenance, and we're here to respond to any questions you may have.
Let me just say we have two cards, Mr. Al Suhu and Mr. Manson Kwok. Just so you're aware, before you came here, the committee was going to accept this report as a receive and file, a note and file. It's not acting on these recommendations. This report was merely to respond to some requests that were made. So, and the CAO also commented that this is not a report that they'd recommend we act on. So, but we have your cards. If you want to speak, we'll have you come up in a little bit. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. One of the things we discussed earlier was long-term revenue-generating options for El Pueblo. One of them was the parking rates. And can you give us an update on that and where we are, when we can expect new revenues due to that change?
Certainly. Quinton's office has been working on preparing those reports for us. We've worked closely with General Services. We expect to be bringing that proposal actually to the Commission's Budget and Operations Committee tomorrow. We're looking at three areas potentially to raise in the parking lot area, potentially raising as much as $500,000 annually. All things being equal, the assumption is that if we raise the parking lots, raise the fees in the parking lots, the one assumption that we're making is that it will not have any depreciable or negative effect on visitorship based on those assumptions. I'll turn that over to Quinton if you want to, depending on.
Quinton Gonzalez, Pueblo Department. I'm sorry, what was that question?
What's the existing cost of parking there, and what's the proposed cost?
It's in, like Mr. Andrade said, three areas. There's a 20-minute rate, which is proposed to increase in two lots from $1.50 for every 20 minutes to $2 every 20 minutes. There's a proposed increase rate for the maximum daily rate, and that would change from $10 for the day to $13.20, and that's in two lots as well. And then the final proposed rate is for a flat rate, which is in two lots. It's all they charge. They don't charge by the minute, by the hour. And those are changing from $6 a day to $8 a day.
Do we have people other than visitors to El Pueblo park there all day? For example, city workers who would just walk to City Hall, or other office workers? Yeah. Or people who want to park there and take the metro?
Yes, according to GSD, in their study they had identified court employees who park on parking lot 1, mostly a monthly fees, monthly rates, and also for parking lots 5, which is on Alameda and Arcadia, and that also is for the federal building. There's a number of city employees. We do have that data that's going to be going before the Commission and the committee, Budget and Operations Committee of El Pueblo. It's about 100 people.
Our parking rates are pretty competitive, I would assume, in that area, so we probably won't see a drop-off from these folks, but the concern is from visitors to El Pueblo, correct?
Of course, we need to be able to balance that off. The study that was prepared, or the survey, I should say, that was prepared by General Services reflects parking lots in and around the area, so we're comparing apples to apples.
But the money we would realize is for next fiscal year, not this fiscal year, correct?
Correct. However, should we be able to expedite this item, ultimately the El Pueblo Commission has the final say-so over this. We will come forward and make those recommendations for the increases. We could implement it by May, and I was told just before we got here, and I apologize for the tardiness. I was trying to be as efficient as possible with my time and didn't realize that you were going to be moving forward on our item, but I do apologize for that. Nevertheless, by implementing, I believe by May, we would generate about $90,000 in revenue this fiscal year.
Okay. Now, the leases, that's been a long term item, if we move those forward as proposed now, how much new money and revenue can we realize?
If we go to market rate rents, minimally it would be a 30% increase over our existing rent. It could be somewhat higher than that, depending on what that market study would reflect. Currently, we make about $870,000, $880,000 a year, so we'd be looking at $230,000 increase on the merchant rents. There's one other piece that should be coming before you very soon, and that is the Simpson-Jones item. The CIO prepared a report and is in favor of that. It was heard in Arts Committee. They have also approved it. I believe that should be coming forward to Budget and Finance soon. That'll be a 5-year deal that should generate an additional $411,000 over a 5-year period. It adds about $80,000, $90,000 annually.
So when will we finalize those leases, or when can we see them?
That's a magical question, sir. We're working diligently with our CLA and with the city attorney to move forward. It's my fervent hope to get those done sometime in the next fiscal year. It's complex. It has a lot of subtleties and nuances, especially with respect to how the city's going to want to handle it. And to the extent that it comes forward to the full council, which will ultimately have to approve it as well at market rate rents, there will be some pressure to not to do that.
Yeah, but there is still some disagreement as to what the terms of those leases should be, right? Or
That is correct.
There's wide disagreement.
That is correct.
Okay. From the city attorney's office versus who?
There's a difference in the city family. The issue has to do with long-term and also what those long terms mean. The city executed some agreements back in 1997 for 55 years. I believe the current it's in the charter that indicates that the city has to execute long-term leases with Olvera Street merchants. What long-term means is up for interpretation. There are some views that they should be market rate at 5 years plus 5. There are other views that believe that there should be 55-year terms. There are some views taken by others that the assignment rights of those 55-year leases, which have value, should be thoroughly vetted within the city before the city comes forward in its position.
No offense, but a year ago in Budget Committee, I asked the question of the status of leases. It is now a year later. Can we get a breakdown of how many leases we have, how many have been renegotiated, how many are outstanding, and what the issues may be? I want to see it in black and white. And I frankly don't want to wait another year. We can deal with the politics. We're in the worst budget crisis in the city's history, and it's time that a full year's gone by, and it's pretty much what you said last year is what you're saying this year. So we have to, make a decision on this. So get us the raw data of what you're charging. It can be a confidential if it needs to be. We don't want to get in the middle of your negotiations, but frankly, we need to know the true picture.
Absolutely. We'll do that for you.
Thank you.
And the question to the CAO is, we're not adopting, this is informational only, but they are facing a revenue shortage for this year of $350,000. And they proposed, and even up as soon as May 10th, if nothing is done to fill that gap. So what is the solution? And I certainly wouldn't want to see us go down this path of making all these cuts. So what is the solution?
Well, as far as we've been reporting over the year, we have this hole to fill, and I think from our perspective, one of the things why we were very supportive of the parking changes, we feel we need to come up to market rates. That would provide a little bit of cushion to offset this, but at this point, we're assuming that we're going to have to make up the hole from other means. We've set aside money in the UB, Reserve for Economic Uncertainties, and that's really what we're assuming we're going to have to go there.
Well, can we give some assurances to our general manager here that these cuts will not have to take place, and we'll find some manner in which to fill that gap? Is that an appropriate direction that we can give from the committee?
Exactly. I mean, as far as, I know there was some reduction in hours, but as far as, that's really the limit as where I see us going this year.
Okay.
I think you're concerned about the employees waiting for that May 10th and being a little
Yeah.
stressed out without knowing.
It's created a bit of a psychic disturbance for the office. As I mentioned earlier, we've already had to lay off 17 intermittent employees. I believe we're the only department that's had to do that so far.
Yeah.
It's not a pleasant situation.
Yeah. Well, given that we are in a tight budget situation, I think it would be, and we all have to bear the burden, I think, and El Pueblo will certainly have to bear some burden, but I think it's unfair that we kind of just hold El Pueblo right now up and say, you're the first, without even looking elsewhere about how we're going to make up that huge hole. So I would want to postpone this, you having to make these cuts until we get a bigger picture of what's going on, and I hope we could do that. Since we're not taking action on this, hopefully you could hold off on any cuts you will have to make, and we'll find a way to make you whole, unless, there'll be, probably not whole, but we'll have to make some of that funding up somehow.
As I said, we're holding the line steady. We're within our budgeted allotted amounts. It's likely that we'll have, by the end of fiscal year, somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 in savings, which we would offer to, obviously to be swept at the end of the year for that, for our contribution.
$350,000 been accumulative? I mean, is this a budgetary issue each year, or?
No, the 350 was actually sort of built into the base budget. I mean, it was an issue when we started that wasn't addressed back a year ago. So it's been outstanding pretty much the whole year. The department was asked to look at some reductions to sort of offset a little bit of that. So they've reduced some museum hours. The parking has been an issue. We'd love to see the parking go forward as quickly as possible, and we'll make up the remaining amount through other means.
How are we doing with the Italian Hall?
Oh, they're here. I do know that there was a study that was completed. The assessment was done, and that the last Municipal Facilities Committee, I believe, the report came forward and indicate that there would be taking a look at budgeting some level of dollars for the next year for some of the work to be done. There were 3 options made available in that report, and that'll likely come forward, and it's a tough decision for the council and the mayor on the funding of that.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we're going to note and file this report, and thank you very much for the information. We have 2 speakers. We can just hold tight there in
Don't
case.
forget to give us the breakdown of those.
Mr. Al Shuhu.
Promise I'll get you.
Okay.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right. And you're also speaking for Mr. Kwok? Okay. Okay, very good. All right, we have, very good. So we'll move that item, note and file it. Thank you. This is 12? Okay. Oh, hold on, we got one other. Public comment, Mrs. Mahoney. Josephine?
Robert. Josephine's coming up. Do you want us to be up?
If you could just hold tight
Yeah.
here, and in case she has a question that only you can answer.
Good afternoon. I'm Josephine Mahoney, president of the Italian Hall Foundation.
Okay.
And
Buongiorno.
I just want to thank you all for your support in the past and for your support of El Pueblo and the family that we are a part of. And want to encourage you with the work that you're doing with the leases. And there are some leases that still with the Italian Hall outstanding, and I want to applaud your interest. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll note and file that report. Next item.
Okay, item number 14 is the City Controller's quarterly report relative to the status of reserve fund loans as of December 31st, 2007.
Which item are we on?
14.
14.
Let me just ask a couple of questions, because we've all read the report. just like to find out if, from the controller's office standpoint, what is the perception as relates to reserve, this current status of our reserve loans, and whether we're making progress as they see beneficial for the current reserve fund?
Yes, we are. As a matter of fact, as of today, we have collected about 28 million in reserve fund loans, so that the contingency reserve stands at close to 60 million as of today. So the Controller's Office and the CAO are constantly monitoring these loans from the departments, and as soon as we see revenues coming into those funds that are supposed to pay the reserve fund loan, we contact those departments and ask them if they can make payments to their...
Let me have that figure again. You said 28, you've recovered 28 million?
Yes.
And then what was the other figure you mentioned? I think it's 60?
The
What was the 60 million?
No, as of today, our contingency reserve is 60 million. That is
the reserve?
Right,
Okay.
contingency reserve. So that is an increase of about 28 million from December 31st.
Okay. And then let me ask you, are you seeing for 07, 08 a less number of loans as opposed to 06 and 07? Are we actually loaning less funds?
That all depends on actions that the council will adopt, but at this
I
point...
mean, at this point, do you see that is it leveled out? Are we doing more? Are we doing less?
I think we're leveled out at this point.
Pardon?
We are leveled out at this
We're
point.
leveled out,
Yeah.
so we're doing about the same as last year?
Yes.
Okay. Now, are there any departments that are doing better than others? Are there any that's delinquent in supporting your efforts to get these loans in?
There are less delinquencies. The departments are pretty much on top of their accounts payable to the reserve fund, except for those small amounts that the departments couldn't pay. They would ask for write-offs, but in general, the departments are pretty much on top of their payments to their advances.
Okay. Any questions? No. Okay, we'll move this item. Thank you.
Okay, this should be it.
Let me see, Mr. Wiseman, you had a card for 14?
Oh, come back, come back.
Yeah, just in case, yeah.
The specific comments made. Thank you. I'm going to start by introducing the iceberg. For those of you who have been on my television program, and you all have, thank you very much. This is an iceberg. The reserve fund is the tip of the iceberg of your budget problem. And the severity of it, I've just been talking to the sixth member of your organization in some detail, and we've had a number of conversations about a difference in opinion, which I think you're going to be hearing more from the general community. We have been doing priority budgeting for some years now. And priority budgeting by itself is a self-defeating process. It means you're saying, we have limited resources, therefore what can we do without? I want to change the attitude. I want to come before you in a number of occasions in the near future, very near future, to talk with you about changing this attitude of negativity, to change it from priority budget to goal-based budgeting. We need to look more consistently and more continuously at the goals that we're trying to do and not at the things we're trying to avoid doing. Now, that's going to take a whole revision of our income stream. At present, we have 20 ways to raise funds for this city of ours. But those funds are all dumped into the big soup bowl we call the general fund. And the funds that come from one source do not go to pay for the services that that source needs. Our property taxes don't go specifically enough toward the services that members, people who own property need, and people who live in those properties need. And we need to allocate more directly, I believe, the funding from each source. Sales taxes come to helping to promote commerce in our city and promote the safety of people who use our commercial activities. Licenses, taxes, fees, that's a $600 million item. But shouldn't every one of those pay at least what those services are? They don't. And therefore, we subsidize our big builders, we subsidize our pet owners, and I'm one of them. We subsidize everybody who gets a license in this city. We have a problem with triple flipping our VHF, with losing 7 cents of our 8.5-cent sales tax, so that we are still dependent upon the state. And I don't have to tell you, because I know you're very acutely aware of the fact of the danger that the state has in removing funds that we sorely need. Independence from others is another subject that I think we're going to have to be talking about for a lot. So when you look at this reserve fund, which is frighteningly low right now, I'm sure, to all of us, it just tells us the beginning of what the next several months have in store for us and the kinds of conversations we're going to be having. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, is that the last item? Okay, we have two. Why don't you just state it, Mr. Weissman? You have a public comment, and ask Mr. McQuiston to come up for your public comment.
Thanks, folks. You can go.
Thank you. Okay.
Should I say?
Whatever they want, they don't want to go, Bill.
Well, first of all.
Why are you kicking them out, Bill?
Don't you really want to hear
they were tapping their foot.
You can see.
They don't want to hear what I have to say?
No, they were tapping their
No, they quoted her.
I'm sure they do. Well, the first thing I want to do is thank the four of you for still being here, and I miss Mr. Smith, because this is one of the opportunities. Public comment, as you know, is something I hold extremely important at every committee meeting, and that I think, although this is not the committee to do it in, has to be looked at very carefully so that our public comment isn't a silly thing, but it is something where the people who work to come and talk to you can speak to you. And I'm going to take the opportunity to talk about something which I think is budget, and that's the DWP rate thing, which is not over yet. There's still $200 million to be gained from the Department of Water and Power every year, whether we do or whether we do not accept the water rate increase for this year. But Mr. Rosendahl, you've had several people call your office. I would strongly encourage you, and I hope you will reconsider re-entering your 6I amendment to move those dates around again. You're going to hit the entire city, the entire ratepayer structure of this city with 6% increases in the next 2 or 3 months if we don't. And the whole budget structure, when you come back to that again, is going to have to be revised. I cannot see but new taxes, new income sources are going to have to be devised. And how many times this year are we going to be going to our public without adequately letting them know why our taxes are going up? And if we hit them that hard, it's going to be another one of those perfect storms that Al Abrams talked about at the beginning of the year when we had the Proposition H thing. Proposition S, excuse me. Thank you. I'm sorry that Mr. Smith isn't here, but I know that several of you were involved in 6B, the idea that we would forego the release of the funds from the Department of Water and Power to the city in the transfer. If that can be re-entered and passed on Wednesday, the whole water transfer is unnecessary. And I think one of you or many of you should reopen public comment, because I think you're going to find a number of people who are going to anxiously want to come and speak again and speak in some new terms, because we learn something new every day in public comment on Wednesday. So I hope the public comment will be reopened for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. McQuiston?
Jim McQuiston. This next year is really going to be hard. And we've just heard some people giving us some very depressing news, and heard a department very upset about this. Now, I've gone through these numbers, and from what I've gotten so far, and it's probably going to be much higher, I figure, wow, we're going to have to lay off something like 8,000 employees, 8,000 employees. And I've tried to go through the ones that were picked last time we got into a mess like this, although it was much smaller. And we did go after the social services departments and the building and safety department. Building and safety, really, their primary interest is safety. They do a lot of other things besides, but safety is the number one thing. And I've tried to get some answers out of the department about how they really record their time, because if it's not a safety item, maybe it can be reduced, and if it isn't something that can be reduced, then we have to keep them, because safety is not only the police and the fire department, but it's a building and safety department too. But 8,000 employees, that's going to come out of street services. It's going to come out of everywhere. And I am very, very concerned, and I'm sticking to my guns and trying to figure out some answers, but it doesn't look like it's going to be a penny ante reduction this year. You've heard the financial people talking about this. Of course, I'm heavily involved in financial matters too, and the rates have gone just plummeting. I think 0.01% is what you get on your checking account now, when that used to be 17% at one time. So these kinds of things people can understand because it's hit them too. And I think with a little bit of good PR, we can get people to understand that this is their city. They have to pitch in. And we've done this before. We did this with the sanitation pickup charge. Remember, there was no sanitation pickup charge, and we found out that people were willing to pay for this, and that a lot of people in the city had to pay, the people that the city didn't pick up for at all. And when that was realized, then people said, yeah, we should do our share. So I think people are willing to do this. But one thing that really gets me is that the police and the fire department service that the city is doing for property is nowhere near covered by the property taxes that people pay. And I think we've got to correct that. We just have to. Either we have to cut down on the city services, police and fire. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. But we have to get that at least reconciled, and that's a major problem in our budget. That's almost $1 billion.
Thank you very much. We have no other items?
We look forward to seeing you in our budget committee meetings because we know you are a frequent attender.
Come up with revenue streams.
Thank you very much. Meeting's adjourned.
And if anybody